So welcome back to another round of questions and answers here. Got some good questions again, and we're going to try to get through all of these and see if we can help some people out. The first thing that I'll say, which is one thing that I always say, is find a good physio, like a really good physio that can get their hands in there and also do some tests and whatnot. But if we're talking about training and returning to sport and practice and competition, then there's a process that we go through there. So there's going to be a regeneration phase and a functional phase. And in each phase, we just have different things that we need to address and we need to look at and test. But we need to address some flexibility, need to address some kind of dynamic mobility as well. And then again, when we get back to running, light running, whatever it is, just take a look. So maybe we can see some things. If we have some analysis or some video of sprints before the injury, you can see maybe where that may have came from. If there's something else going on somewhere in the body. So a lot of times with hamstring injuries, we're always going to look at the pelvis to see if that's in line, if everything is good there, because that can also have a huge effect on our running style, our sprinting style. Try to summarize it in just a few smaller bullet points. The first one I would say is be vulnerable. Make yourself very vulnerable. And when I say that, I mean understand that there's a lot of things that you don't know, and it's okay to not know them. And as soon as you realize that you don't know a lot of things, then you start trying to find resources, whether that's people, books, get your hands on books, studies, whatever it is, make yourself vulnerable. The next thing I would say is find people that do really good work and copy them. And I don't mean copy them in a sense of take their work and post it on Instagram and say you did it. First thing is being able to coach really well. So if somebody writes a good program, I can take that program, apply it to my athletes, and make sure that I can coach that program like crazy. And I forget where I read that, but somebody equated it to cooking. So at the beginning, if you're a cook just starting out, you're gonna take a recipe from somebody and you're going to copy that recipe identically. Ob es eine beste Übung gibt? Nein, leider nicht. Das kommt immer darauf an. Wenn ich Sportler oder meine Athletes anschaue beim Sprinten, dann schaue ich immer, was machen die gut und was können wir verbessern. Und das, was die gut machen, das versuche ich dann zu unterstützen, und das kann ich ja auch im Kraftraum machen durch verschiedene Übungen. Zum Beispiel, wenn ich einen Athlet habe und die nutzen eher deren Quadrizeps, die sind halt sehr knee-dominant und verbringen halt ein bisschen mehr Zeit am Boden, dann weiß ich, dass wir Kraftübungen machen sollten, wo die dann halt ein bisschen mehr in der Beugung gehen, zum Beispiel, die halt ein bisschen langsamer sind. So the first book is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I like this book, of course, because of the message, but more so because of the concept, just because as a strength coach or athletic trainer or S&C, whatever it is that you do, you're probably gonna go through a lot of ups and downs, and it's kind of a tough industry to get started in. But as long as you know your why and you have that in mind, then everything will make sense, even the times that suck. So that's one of my favorite books. I've read it a couple of times. The next one is Sports Injury Prevention and Rehabilitation. So this is like a book that I always come back and reference. So it just really breaks down the body into different muscle groups, different joints, and goes through different types of injuries. So if I'm working with a rehab patient or a rehab athlete, being able to reference this book and understand like the anatomy, trains, and how everything is connected is huge as far as getting them back to competition. Very classic book for strength coaches and people in this field, Plyometrics by Donald Chu. It's a little bit of an older book, but these are things that don't really go out of style. It's not outdated, old but not outdated. And again, it's just goes through different progressions of plyometrics and regressions as well. So if you're ever in a bind and you feel like you need to find some ways to include plyos into your, whether it's a warm-up or your training program, I highly suggest this book. The next one is Also, like a reference book, a lot of my books are reference books. I always come back to them and take different sections out. So this is Developing Explosive Athletes by Dr. Brian Mann. And I use this book a lot because I do use velocity-based training. Not with every athlete, but I do use it a lot, and it's always good to be able to come back and reference this and know how or what's the best way to apply velocity-based training to different situations and different athletes in different settings.